Caitlin Clark doesn't require much space here.
Angel Reese has something about her. Her personality, she's contagious. She makes, it hurts.
They say that to be the best, you have to beat the best. And Caitlin Clark isn't backing down from that challenge. At just 23 years old, she has already transformed the landscape of women's basketball, and she's only getting started. Her college career, Clark didn't just break records, she set new ones. She became the all-time leading scorer in NCAA history, surpassing both men and women, and achieved feats that few could have imagined. In a sport that has often been overlooked, Clark is drawing massive crowds, packing arenas night after night in the WNBA. Fans travel for hours, sometimes from across the country, just to watch her play. It's no exaggeration to say she is one of the biggest stars the league has ever seen, but of course, not everyone is a fan. Here are some of the best players who were left humbled after facing Caitlin Clark head-to-head. Before we dive in, don't forget to like this video, and if you enjoy our content, be sure to hit that subscribe button. It truly means the world to us.
That's certainly a shot you want to see her make early. Here's Caitlin Clark driving. She's got the first 5 points.
1. Sabrina Ionescu. Before Caitlin Clark took center stage, women's college basketball had another superstar, Sabrina Ionescu, the #1 overall pick in the 2020 WNBA draft. Ionescu was an absolute powerhouse at Oregon. Her resume is legendary. She became the first player ever to reach 2,000 points, 1,000 rebounds, and 1,000 assists in a career. Meanwhile, Clark shattered records of her own, becoming the NCAA women's basketball all-time leading scorer last year against Michigan, dropping a career-high 49 points to reach 3,569 total in just 126 games. However, when these two superstars faced off, history was made. Clark became the first rookie ever to record a triple-double, leading the Indiana Fever to an 83-78 win over the New York Liberty at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. She started hot, scoring 11 points in the first quarter, while sinking 3 of her 4 shots from deep. By the third quarter, she had already reached double digits in assists, and she secured the milestone with her 10th rebound in the fourth. On the other side, Ionescu led the Liberty with 22 points, but it wasn't enough to stop Clark and the Fever from pulling off the big win. At this rate, Clark is on track to surpass Ionescu in career assists as well. Diana Taurasi. But Ionescu isn't the only all-timer who has been humbled by Clark. Last year, Diana Taurasi seemed determined to shift the spotlight away from Clark and back onto herself. What made it even more surprising was that Taurasi had been one of Clark's idols growing up. Clark looked up to her, admired her game, and dreamed of one day playing in the same league. On June 30th, 2024, the highly anticipated showdown finally happened. Caitlin Clark versus Diana Taurasi. When the game tipped off, Taurasi came out strong. She looked confident, knocking down shots, dishing out assists, and controlling the pace early. But as the game progressed, the pressure mounted, and the Caitlin Clark effect became impossible to ignore. Now, to be fair, Taurasi had a solid game overall, but for someone often called the GOAT of the WNBA, she looked hesitant, especially when it came to guarding Clark. In the end, Clark once again proved why she is the face of the league's future. Mackenzie Holmes faced off against Caitlin Clark, but this time, the story was different. Holmes came out with a mission, dropping 23 points and grabbing 9 rebounds as Indiana dominated Iowa with an 86-69 victory. Clark, fresh off breaking the NCAA women's career scoring record, still put up impressive numbers: 24 points, 9 assists, and 9 rebounds. But it wasn't enough. She struggled from the field, shooting just 8 for 26, including a cold 3 for 16 from deep. Even more shocking, she managed only 4 points in the entire second half. After a disappointing loss to Illinois earlier in the week, the Hoosiers had something to prove, and they did just that. They executed their game plan perfectly against Clark, securing a statement win. But even in defeat, Clark remained the star of the show, and Hoosiers fans took to social media to express their frustration. 4. Diamond Miller. Even in tough losses, Caitlin Clark always puts on a show. And against Maryland, she made sure everyone knew exactly who runs the Big Ten. In February 2023, Clark erupted for 42 points in a win over Maryland, while Diamond Miller led the Terrapins with 27 points. The two teams met again in the Big Ten Women's Basketball Tournament semifinals in March 2023. Under the bright lights and in front of a roaring crowd, Clark delivered another masterclass, dropping 42 points and leading Iowa to a 96-82 victory. This wasn't just another great performance, it marked her 6th career 40-point game. Miller, Maryland's star and one of the best players in the country, came ready to battle. She put up 27 points of her own, showing why she was considered one of the top players in the nation. But on this particular night, Caitlin Clark was simply unstoppable. Georgia Amoore. Caitlin Clark didn't just pick up where she left off last season. She made it clear that she's still the most dangerous, scorer in college basketball. In a thrilling showdown against Virginia Tech, Clark delivered a stunning 44-point performance, leading Iowa to a hard-fought 80-76 victory. Georgia Amoore did everything she could to keep Virginia Tech in the game, finishing with an impressive 31 points. But Clark was simply unstoppable, taking over possession after possession, whether it was a contested three, a drive to the rim, or threading the needle for an assist. She found a way to control the game. In the end, Clark had the final say, sinking a free throw to secure her 44th point and sealing the ranked win for Iowa, overshadowing Amoore's otherwise incredible performance. But Amoore is just one of many elite players who have been challenged by Clark's brilliance. Cottie McMahon. Last year, in front of a national television audience, Ohio State pulled off a statement win, taking down Caitlin Clark and Iowa 92-80 in a dramatic overtime battle. Leading the charge was sophomore Cottie McMahon, who was unstoppable, dropping a career-high 33 points on 12 of 23 shooting, while also grabbing 12 rebounds for a massive double-double. When the game was on the line, McMahon took over, scoring 8 of her 33 points in overtime and proving to be the difference maker. On the other side, Clark did what she does best. She lit up the scoreboard with a season-high 45 points, including all 9 of Iowa's overtime points. But the problem was clear. Iowa needed more. Outside of Clark, no other Hawkeye scored more than 14 points, making it evident that she had to carry the team on her own. Dijonai Carrington. Just like in her matchup against the Connecticut Sun, Caitlin Clark had a slow start against Dijonai Carrington, but once she found her rhythm, she made Carrington look absolutely helpless. Both players had their moments early on, but foul trouble forced Clark to the bench for a stretch, giving Carrington an opportunity to capitalize. By the time Clark returned, it seemed like Connecticut had locked her down, just as they had in their previous matchup. But with Clark, it's only a matter of time. Eventually, she broke free, leading the Fever to an 84-80 win over one of the WNBA's toughest teams. For Clark, it was sweet revenge after their last meeting, and another statement win on home court. 8. Kelsey Plum. Not long ago, Caitlin Clark made history by breaking the all-time Division I women's scoring record with a deep three against Michigan. The record she shattered? It belonged to Kelsey Plum. Fast forward to a Tuesday night. In the WNBA, and the 2 number 1 overall picks finally went head-to-head. This time it was Plum who stole the spotlight, delivering a season-high 34 points on a scorching 11 of 20 shooting night, leading the Las Vegas Aces to an 88-69 win over Clark's Indiana Fever. Clark still had her moments, finishing with 13 points, 11 assists, and 6 rebounds, but it was a tough shooting night for the rookie. With Plum guarding her at times, the battle between these two elite scorers felt personal. Despite the intensity, the matchup ended with a fun moment between the two stars. This may have been Plum's night, but Clark's story is far from over. Yarden Garzon. While Caitlin Clark is known for being calm, composed, and unshakable both on and off the court, someone finally managed to get under her skin. In February 2023, during a matchup at Bloomington's Assembly Hall, Indiana's Yarden Garzon frustrated Clark like no one else. With 8 minutes left in the second quarter, Iowa trailed 26-22, and Clark was looking to shift the momentum. But Garzon had other plans. She stepped into Clark's path, shutting down her drive and standing her ground. Seconds later, the two were face-to-face, jawing at each other. The normally cool-headed Clark didn't back down, but it was clear that Indiana had rattled her. Despite Clark's gritty performance, 24 points, 10 rebounds, and 9 assists, Iowa couldn't weather the storm. Indiana dominated the second half, pulling away for a commanding 86-69 victory. 10. Angel Reese. The rivalry between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese has been one of the most talked about storylines in women's basketball. In one highly anticipated college matchup, Clark wasted no time making her presence felt. She started the game on fire, dropping back-to-back highlight reel assists that had the crowd buzzing. By the end of the third quarter, the Fever had extended their lead to 14 points, thanks to Clark's all-around brilliance. Another 8 points and 2 assists added to her stat line. Meanwhile, Reese had a rough stretch, managing just 1 point on 2 shots and finishing the quarter with a negative plus-minus. By the time the fourth quarter rolled around, the game was all but over. After watching Caitlin Clark go head-to-head with some of the league's best, one thing is clear: she's here to dominate. But the question remains, is she already one of the WNBA's top players, or does she still have more to prove?